Hey everyone, I'm Verloon and this is a compilation of my Plants vs Zombies 2 plant ranking. I have made sure to re-edit my mistakes and a few jokes. If you want to see more of this series, don't just wait on these compilations, but support all the individual parts like all the videos I've launched, the videos here of course. Sub to the channel and check my socials and donation spots to give financial support and feedback. Now, without further ado, I present to you the compilation of my PvZ rankings from Ancient Egypt to Dark Ages and a little bonus. Okay, I originally thought of doing the whole game, but it was too much and I started running into problems comparing our apples to oranges. So we are dividing these by worlds, and in the end, just try to stitch everything together. So if this video gets 10 likes, I will do Pirate Seas next. Hi, I'm Verloon, your favorite demon paid detective and professional artistic pessimist, and in this video we are going to rank the plants of the tutorial world and Ancient Egypt from Plants vs Zombies 2. As a disclaimer, I recorded gameplay from the PvZ2 Reflourished mod, but I'm taking in consideration the original's game stats and prices, so I'm not going to penalize Laserbeam for costing 275 Sun instead of 200, or Sunbeam for getting a buff since it costs 0 Suns, and I'm disregarding levels. So with all that gibberish out of the way, let's start ranking. First, Pea Shooter. Pea Shooter is the most milquetoast plant ever, obviously. It shoots straight, it costs 100 Sun, so you can get it fairly quickly and you can build up a decent line of defense. That will clean up most early game threats. Given enough distance, of course, and a decent if not good plant food, that at worst it's still putting out solid damage into the bigger threats like Agantuars. On the other side, Pea Shooter suffers from the first plant Titus and power creep. Naturally, the damage output is on the lower end by that nature, and it can't ignore graves and other obstacles which, while not present in every world, make him very unviable in those unless you purposely build around Pea Shooter's quirks. So, while ever iconic and in many ways really decent for early game, it definitely deserves to rank a C, not because it's bad, but it's the benchmark every plant needs to follow. Sunflower. Sun producers are busted in this game, straight up. Well, most of them anyways. There's a lot to write about how just doubling the amount of suns produced from PvZ1 to 2 changes the core design philosophy of it, but to keep it simple for now, it makes every sun plant insanely good. And that reflects on Sunflower, which, even if you have only a row of it, you can legitimately have a decent defense line by the end of the game, unless you like a line of winter melons. The downside is that it only produces 50 suns, so it's not the best sun producer, and with that it can't really keep up into the later levels without grid maxing by making 2 and 3 corridors of them. But I will keep it on B tier, even if realistically there is an argument to put her all the way to A tier and maybe even S, if you argue they are meant to be substituted later on, unlike Pea Shooter, which brings downsides removing it from the defense at the wrong time. Walnut. Just copy-paste Sunflower's reasoning here and substitute sun for wall terminology. It's a surprisingly strong plant that its only downside are that the fact it's not the best, and the fact some zombies can get over it. But as the first wall, you can pretty much finish the game with it and still have a decently easy time if you play the game smartly. So B tier, like the Sunflower. Potato Mine. I don't like Potato Mine. It's a bit of a blind hatred, but I do have my reasons. It takes time to charge, which, while fair considering it's only 25 cents, makes it pretty inefficient if you're in a pinch and have no plant food. It's best to use it as a strategic failsafe as the back of the line, which in most cases is useless if you don't want zombies there, or to drag out the early horde and build a sun empire, which Potato Mine just gets outranked by later plants for that function. So, while definitely not the worst plant, Potato Mine is one of those PvZ1 plants that got screwed over in transition, and PopCap didn't rework because they were free, which makes it a D tier. Cabbage Pult. Speaking of PvZ1 plants that got screwed over, Cabbage Pult. Once the plant off the roof levels getting its own role to shine, now relegated to a situational gimmick with really only one roll rate useful above any other catapult plant. The biggest debate here is if it's better than a pea shooter, and I'd say yes, by technicality. It's the classic archetype of being slower but shooting harder, and while it's good for levels with grades, all two worlds of it, it immediately falters outside of it, especially once you unlock kernel pult just by the next world. So, while definitely a good plant and probably a strong starting option in any other alternative version of PvZ2, I'd say it barely qualifies as a low B tier, but I will put it there as a respect for its plant food, which is honestly a lifesaver if you by accident let a zombie reach behind your plants. Bloomerang. This plant is bizarre. It's like PopCap put every good ingredient into one plant but they forgot to cook it and served it raw. And now it's molding next to the cam sock. So the problem here is that it has the same damage as a pea shooter. That sounds great, in theory, since it's a piercing plant and does damage up to 3 zombies or objects twice, unlike other plants that can only hit 1 zombie. Until you notice it's 175 suns, at a slower rate than what pea shooter shoots. Even if you are taking out more targets, this plant will eventually be outranked by any other stronger plants, be it more or less expensive, be it Repeater, who does the job Bloomerang should be doing as a mid-range damage dealer more efficiently, or Snapdragon that even at a closer distance does more damage and can take down way more than just 3 zombies. So his saving grace could be the plant food, and it's just pea shooter in 4 directions. I feel like 2 of these are useless most times. So yeah, I'm putting it in C tier. I don't care what you say. Iceberg lettuce. Holy pig! When I was insulting Potato Mine about stalling a horde, this is what I meant as a comparison point. This 0 cent cost motherfucker that steals all your girlfriends not only freezes 1 zombie, which can be a lifesaver or give you room to stall some production at the start, but its plant food power is to freeze every zombie on the stage. Do I need to say anything else? I could say that the fact the power doesn't affect multiple zombies or the recharge time are not enough reasons to consider Iceberg lettuce anywhere below S tier. Gravebuster. This is stupid, like the only redeeming quality is that it's free. He's only useful in 2 worlds, this and Dark Ages, and it feels completely useless in Ancient Egypt. Ancient Egypt, as there is no strategic uses for it that Cabbage Pult can't ignore, and the newbie zombies are not strong enough to justify their use. On the other hand, in the Dark Ages it is somewhat useful to break the graves with plant food or sun, but that is not enough to salvage it in my opinion. It's a badly thought out plant for a gimmick that was ignored for most of the game as new levels were created. Despite this, I will bump it from a F to a D, because I do think it at least has 1 world where it makes sense to use it, unlike some plants later that can barely be used in their own worlds. Chili Bean. Bong Choy. Great plant. In the melee world, this is definitely not the best, but it's super reliable and is really cool. I think at least. Bong Choy attacks 1 tile to the front and 1 tile to the back, which, you know, makes this more useless, especially since Bong Choy's power attacks in a 3x3 area. Again, why? So, while I could put it in A tier, I think the shorter range probably means your nuts will take a hit, and that can be really damaging. And you really can have it in the back and front if you wish to use it in the Wild West, for example. So I will put it on high B tier. Repeater. This is a very good plant. The double Ps are good at killing most zombies, unlike a certain Boomerang, and have a great synergy with Torchwood. And you might say it's a waste. This is a souped up pea shooter and deserves a well-rounded B, with the possibility of an A if it wasn't for the fact there are just more interesting options of attack. And last, Twin Sunflower. This is a weird one. I personally like it since it still leads to a quick setup with Iceberg lettuce, but it's objectively bad. The extra 25 suns is the killing factor here. It costs more than it produces, so you will never have enough to use it as a main sun producer without major stalling at the start. The plant food also doesn't save it since it's just 2 sunflowers. You know, like 150 plus 150. So in the end it's just a worse sunflower that can be better in the late game, but earlier on could doom you if you don't have a good staller plant. C tier. And that's it for now. Next time we will be ranking PvZ plants, so like, share, subscribe and all that stuff. Snapdragon is A tier and I don't care. Sorry for that. After the success of the last video, I hope, let's give some ranking treatment we gave to the tutorial and Acient Egypt plants to PvZ next. From Kernel Pult to Cherry Bomb, I want 15 likes this time. So let's go rank every PvZ2 plant, Part 2, PvZ edition. Kernel Pult. Cabbage Pult but better. For the same price and just 10 less damage, you get the plant that can stun basically every enemy with its plant food. And besides really specific cases, it has the chance to stun almost every enemy in its line, one at a time of course, which can come in clutch a whole bunch of times, even if sometimes it doesn't, and it costs the same as Cabbage Pult. You can argue the damage the latter gives can be more useful, but are you really going to argue over an 8-second stun that can stack infinitely and 10 damage? There is no discussion here, really. Even if Cabbage Pult is a stronger option, Kernel Pult brings so much to the table that it at least deserves an A tier. Second, Snapdragon. A tier, borderline S maybe. Snapdragon's biggest weakness is that it doesn't work with iceberg lettuce and other ice plants, but it's an exemplary plant on balanced bustedness. It attacks in a 2x3 range in front of it and also does 30 damage, but with the attack speed just slightly larger than P-Shooter, from 1.5 seconds to 2 seconds, and double of the range of Bonk Shoy, that compensates for its slowness. Compared to it, Snapdragon is a great plant that has just been power crept. What helps its case is that Frostbite caves levels, where it is way better than Pepper Pult as a hitter. Considering it cheaper and the tech area makes the gimmick of the world way more manageable. And of course that plant food ability is borderline perfect. Just an absolute mower of zombies. Third, Spikeweed. When I was a kid I'd put this in S. B. And I'm being kind of generous here, because this is one of those cases where you just outgrow the plant. I do think that it is a generally strong plant and in most cases more cost effective than Spike Rock, since unless you build a whole strat about stalling for suns, this basically becomes just insta-kills to use against specific targets like piano zombies or barrel zombies. It really just isn't at a lower tier because there is a genuine strategy on bringing them, especially in low sun cost teams, and all ground plants can't be normally eaten, so they end up as a reliable plant next to a walnut or a tallnut, which you unlock until you unlock Endurian, I mean, of course. Fourth, Spring Bean. No! D tier. And that's because you had some cool synergy with Blower before Bobcat discovered balancing. It does have its usages, but the fact that it has such a long wait time until it can launch a zombie into the air, out of the platform, that it will most likely be eaten, so just shovel it and put a new one. Cool plant food though. It's busted in PvZ, if you actually can use it. You know, before it gets eaten by the 15,000 guys on the same platform. Fifth, Coconut Cannon. Hot take, I guess. I don't like manual plants, so you can imagine where this goes. It's a plant with a slow reload speed, so it just
basically a forever weaker cherry bomb that instead of a good Hail Mary or strategic insta-kill, you get a plant that kind of just sits there after you use it once. And it gets worse for the coconut, as the single lane attack and plant food, even with splash damage, makes it look worse compared to other manual plants that were introduced later like banana launcher. So I'd say C tier. It definitely has its place in the meta game, but it's not something I want to use, but something you can use in conveyor levels, and not much else. 6th, Free Peter. 3 times the holes, 3 times the... why the fuck is there no 6 lane sections for symmetry sakes? Outside of autism, the plant is good, and that's about it. If you do a full row of them, they just become just textual 3 Peters, as in 3 Ps. Although, if you only put one, you are just putting a 300 sun plant in place of 3 pea shooters that cost 100 suns. So I'd say B tier. It's better than a pea shooter just by the nature of shooting in 3 lanes, and also benefits from synergy with Torchwood and itself. The plant food though, it's not that good considering it just throws peas into every lane with no strategic benefit besides cleaning the road. The plant is effectively or helping out other rows, which is either what the pea shooter already does or any catapult plant could do. 7. Spike Rock. Spikeweed's expensive cousin, same speech applies, but now the 3 lives it has can be a blessing if you put them at the front, and nothing more really. Put them anywhere else, it's basically useless, because unless the zombies walk backwards, it's basically a dead weight. The 250 sun cost is not helping here, and probably is the biggest killer, because for that price you can put 2 spikeweeds in the half for just double the damage and 3 extra lives, which while in parentheses can be really useful since there is a limited space where barrel zombies can spawn in. In any other world, like the Wild West, yeah, pack it up, bro, you are not special. Just load up Spikeweed and use it as an insta-kill. B tier also, but below Spikeweed. 8th, Cherry Bomb. To finish off Pirate Sea's Cherry Bomb, A tier. A great insta-kill plant that the PvZ2 economy just makes it ultra useful. It explodes and damages a 3x3 area, which in Pirate Seas is both busted and somewhat wasted considering it's at the end of the world and all. And in any other worlds just cleans whatever you need with the exception of just a few tanky zombies. In my opinion, Pirate Seas is a really good world, really consistent and probably the best collection of plants early PvZ2 had to offer from the 3 beginning worlds. So in the next video we are ranking the Wild West plants. Might be a bit controversial, or not. See you next time!
After probably making the PvZ community, the PvZ2 especially, very mad 2 times, let's go for a 3rd. Wild West. Besides being an eyesore to symmetry, it's pretty good. I like how this world's gimmick makes level to level gimmicks more bearable, since rails, for example, make X amount of plants levels really fun, since you don't need to worry about leaving some lanes unprotected. Saying that, today's video I'll like 15 likes and 2 subs, like, comment, share, blah 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 blah. Look at the link tree, please. Now, without further ado, let's start the video.
First, Split Pea. I think Split Pea is surprisingly good. Not really, but it's better than a pea shooter by default. But the fact it only shoots 1 forward makes it feel like a step back after Repeater and even 3 Repeater that are just a straight evolution. Despite that, I think this is a good plant to bring in Wild West levels to counter minor zombies and other specific ones in later worlds. But if you like having funnier plant structures, You can just stuff bonk shoys or spikeweeds behind and put nuts to protect them. High C tier, not enough to be a B. Second, chili bean. No, F tier. No argument needed. It's just useless. Besides maybe an insta-kill for the chicken wrangler and other annoying zombies. But literally every insta-kill does that. The only good thing about it was smell effect, and nowadays you can get it from stunning instead. While copying Potato Mine's plant food ability, that is generally good considering, you know, the general quality of those. Not even that is a good argument, because you can just... she's not as useful. Chili Bean is not as useful as any of them. At least Potato Man can save you in a pinch against a Gargantuar, while Chili Bean just gets compressed. Go back to hell, Chili Bean. No one wants to remember you. You truly are the weird cousin of the family, even if it makes sense concept-wise. Third, Peapod. Hell on earth, the date this plant is useful. Great, no doubt about that. The problem is the 125 sun cost. It's more expensive than a normal pea shooter, and that cost never really gets better, as it's more like a gambler's fallacy. As, for example, by the 4th pea in the pea pod, you have wasted 500 suns on a plant that, while strong, for the same price you can have a winter melon, one of the most busted plants in the game. So unless you have a cool torchwood and primal sunflower strategy, you might as well plan a better defense and put Giga Shed that winter melon needs instead of virgin pea pod, that even you can build it up. You cannot justify putting it over something like kernel put or repeater or even melon pult. So D tier. 4. Lightning Reed. Weed plant. I love it, but it's one of those plants that works better the more of them you plant. Outside of Chicken Wrangler and enemies of that same caliber though, it's pretty weak. Worse damage dealer than pea shooter for 25 extra suns no less. But I think the cost is half justified. Besides the fried chicken, it attacks in chains, which is pretty helpful, and gets big hordes with the right plants at his side, and the generally cool plant food that was shamelessly stolen by the blueberry thing. While I wanted to put it at B, since it does have a lot of great uses and it's not fully restricted to its niche. The fact it's weak, despite a plant food that can really be useful in places, it unfortunately belongs to C, next to pea shooter. 5. Melon Pult. The daddy of catapult plants. Great plant. Obviously, for only 325 suns dealing splash damage, might as well be, with it being a really strong plant that is easily useful due to the PvZ2 economy. The one thing about PvZ1 plants that were converted into PvZ2 is that any of them that aren't paid either got fucked in translation or got fucked at a later date. Melon Bolt, on the other hand, is probably one of the only that wasn't fully power crept in a way that wasn't designed on purpose. So this is just a strong plant with a strong plant food and a splash damage. So S tier. I know some PvZ2 professionals will comment saying that Melon Pult is actually bad, and I fully agree. Keep commenting. One comment for every bad take saves my life. 6. Talnut. Bees. More sun, more health, double the cost. But it also blocks flying zombies, which is great for a lot of levels, for about 3 worlds. One if you played back in the day where you get blower. Even then, this is a generally good plant inherently, and it compares to the original walnut as their weakness and strengths are covered by each other. Perfect balanced evolution of a plant. But good balance doesn't make it good, it makes it well designed. And while we can discuss the meaning of that distinction all day, I believe Talnut deserves a high B tier. 7. Winter Melon. The original busted 500 suns plant. It does the same damage as the Melon Pult, but it slows down the zombies through freezing, which basically doubles its damage output. It's basically a more busted Melon Pult, so also S? You question as I go grab my tablet to do a DSP after this video. No, I think the 500 suns, while absolutely obtainable in PvZ2, it's too much to make it useful without a good plant that can protect the lawn. I substitute it later after bumping up your defense. And being one of the most expensive plants also makes its use in any roles that can't decapacitate zombies or kill them from a long distance thing. For example, Big Wave Beach, and obviously Dark Cages, or even Frostbite Caves, which makes this plant way too risky, while Melon Pult, while still more expensive than just a repeater for example, is cheap enough to be obtainable.
In the end, while I think Wild West is one of the best design worlds, its line-up of plants is not that great. It lacks a bit by either them being too gimmicky, like Chili Bean, and while there are two of the best plants ever, most of them are just a variation of old plants, or the same concept. I decided to cover the worlds by when they were added, so next we are moving to the far future, which certainly will be more interesting than this one, even with fewer plants. In case I don't see it, good morning, good evening, and good night. I decided to rank all the power mints of this game. That is right. Rank all the mints. Are you ready? F tier. All of them. Do you think I like them? I hate every single one of these mint fuckers. Why? Well, that's simple. It throws the already PvZ2 balancing onto the fucking garbage disposal and eviscerates any kind of slow and smart play, since mints here always benefit aggressive plays. Now, if you need me to be more specific, the best ones, design-wise, are the Reinforced Mint, because it is a smart way to buff wall plants instead of giving some stupid buff for attack. It just activates the plant food. And the Spearmint, which spawns spike rocks, and that is a pretty funny as an effect, instead of just spawning 5 million spikes in the lawn or whatever PvZ designers were on at this point. The rest are all just really lazy and spawn their family effects into zombies, besides the Concealment, which had to add a reinforcement to the shadow plants, all 10 of them really being saved here by the secondary effect. Here comes the citron, do 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 do. Here comes the citron, and I say that I was too stupid to use it as a kid. Today we are ranking 5 future plants. Might be a shorter video. I might go on a rant about tile turnip. Let's see where this goes. 20 likes, 4 subs, Linktree, blah 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 blah. Now let's get pissed at my PvZ content and watch my non-PvZ content. Let's go. First, Laser Bean. A big plant is regarded as holy splash in Reflourished. The 200 sun cost is amazing for a plant that basically is boomerang but actually good. It does the same damage in the end, but instead of 3 zombies in his front, it's for every zombie in the lane, and it penetrates the annoying shield thingies from this world. The plant food is kind of basic, but considering how good the plant is, I'm not going to say it needs to shoot lasers into every row. I would personally give this plant an S tier. I do think the game should communicate the damage better, because them kid me thought they were weak since it doesn't look like they hit. But besides the early showings of my retardation, no complaints here. 2. Blower. Too good. It was better before, but still a must-have if you don't want to rely on Talnut or Kernel Pult. The main drawback is that fog has gone missing since PvZ1, so Blower really only serves to counter flying zombies. Even then, I believe it is at least an A tier. It's really useful as an insta-kill plant, especially in any world with in-air zombies that are faster than the zombies that... And using it would definitely have helped me in Lost City, but I forgot because I was more concentrated in using all plants. 3. Citron.
300 sun is too much, I just trash Reflourished. But lowering the cost of Citron is genius. It's a great plan, genuinely, a masterpiece that in any other game would shoot up to S, as it grabs the best elements of Coconut Cannon and makes it automatic at the cost of some splash damage and normal damage for 50 less suns. Citron is a great plan that just needs rhythm control from the player. If you are an idiot child like I was, you will hate this plan because you really can have a strategy besides symmetry. For actual good players, absolute peak, with a cheaper laser beam, blower and a good sun plant at his side makes this one of the best plant synergies we've seen in any of these roles. So I will put it at A tier. I can rag about the cost and how the design feels closer to PvZ1 than the madness that PvZ2 becomes, but the plant itself is just too great and adds some of the best depth to a game that, as it goes on to put the focus in speeds and distant kills. 4. EM Peach. Peaches should have a better representation. Besides that, this is a weird plant. It's great by itself and it can come in clutch for many moments, but it feels like a cheap way to counter the mecha football zombie instead of designing an offensive plant that counters it, or a defensive plant that, for example, roots into the floor. But the plant itself is busted. Just for 25 suns, it wipes out all mecha zombies in a 5 area, making them vulnerable and stopping them in their tracks. I could argue about how useless it makes laser beam after it's introduced, but we'll put it in B tier because it's useless outside of here and modern day. So, while it's absolutely busted, the design of PvZ2 and a reluctance to develop gimmicks outside of their own worlds, unlike PvZ1, which, while a general critique of the game, makes this plant way less overpowered than what it already is. 5. Infinite. Hot take, I think Infinite is genuinely bad, despite having a great plant foot power. The fact is it only has half the health of Walnut, which makes it a really bad wall plant. And now reviving does not make it better. It makes it worse because the wait time means you just lose your defense for that lane and leaves everything vulnerable until it reappears. Adding to that, it is more expensive than a Walnut. Yes, it's just for 25 cents, but makes it worse since PvZ2 as its design drops 50 cents and not 25. So while if this was PvZ1, there would be some genuine strategy due to its slower pace. In here, it feels like the remnant of a possible PvZ1 future expansion that the devs just threw in here as filler, because it fit the theme. So I'll throw it in C tier, out of niceness, since it does this job nicely, just not well enough to be better than the humble nut from the tutorial world. 6. Magnifying Grass. I hate this guy. This and Sunbeam will have similar complaints, but they just shouldn't cost sun. The whole gimmick of this plant is that it shoots manually using your suns, which is fine, whatever. It's PvZ2, just do a primal sunflower 5 lanes farm, and this plan is busted. The problem is, well, it's manual, and I hate manual plants, but besides that, it costs sun, not only to shoot the plant, but to plant it, just making it feel like a waste. For the price of shooting this guy, once you could just put a pea shooter or kernel bolt and move on to another lane. Despite my personal grievances, this is a good plant. Great even. I don't like the sun gimmick and I think it makes it way more viable than viable most cases. But with a strong plant foot ability and the fact its attack is 550 damage, it deserves to go on B tier, just not that high. 7. Tile Turnip. The funniest part about this plant is that the next world added was Dark Ages, as in Puffroom. Yeah, I like the idea of this plant, basically making 5 features biggest gimmick useful outside of it, but the prices are genuinely stupid. It doubles every time after the second one, the first being 0, so if you want a full column of these bastards you need to waste 2500 suns, which is not just a fuck ton, it's a shit ton of suns. Most build your defenses level don't give that much sun, which takes what could be a top 5 plant in the game to something like you plant on 2 winter melons to clean your screen with just 1 plant food, still making it a great plant, but not viable enough to put it on A tier, so it shall be stuck at B, even with the potential of being S tier or even higher. In conclusion, I think Far Future definitely has some of the best PvZ2 plants that will ever exist, probably. Even the worst plant here brings something new to the table, because I'm the table. And all of these are parallel to modern PvZ, where balanced power creeping is better than Nightcap. Next up, we are ranking Dark Ages plants that I'll be pissed about Sunbeam probably. Remember in PvZ1 when we had 2 night levels worlds? Well, we get one here and it never comes back. The Flupk, Coffee Bean, Gloom Shroom, Doom Shroom and every shroom. Besides these ones, we only get 4 shrooms until we need to make more money. Okay, you know the drill, 20 likes, 5 subs. Hey! Does your back hurt a lot from sitting on your chair? Does your desk look like it belongs in the landfill? Me too, which is why I had it in my bed. But you deserve better than me. You deserve a Blacklyte chair or desk, with a 4.6 out of 5 on Trustpilot and various products for your gaming setup, partnered with various creators and esports teams, like your one truly. You can trust they will bring quality to your office and give those final beautiful touches to make the perfect office setup or gaming setup to own the noobs in your favorite multiplayer game. And if you have trouble with shipping or got the wrong product, contact customer support through their website, email or even social medias about your order and they will make sure to resolve it as quickly as possible. Use code VERLOON15 for 15% off and use my affiliate links to support my channel down below in the description while getting you a nice discount. Now, back to the video.
Connection terminated. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Elizabeth, if you still even remember that name, but I'm afraid you've been misinformed. You are not here to receive a gift, nor have you been called here by the individual you assume, although you have indeed been called. You have all been called here, into a labyrinth of sounds and smells, misdirection and misfortune. A labyrinth with no exit, a maze with no prize. You don't even realize that you are trapped. Your lust for blood has driven you in endless circles, chasing the cries of children in some unseen chamber.
We are going to rank every plant from Dark Ages, so without further ado, let's rank. Sunshroom. God is dead and we know that is the case because this guy is generally better than a sunflower. The downside is that it makes the early game really slow, especially in its homeworld, the Dark Ages. On the other hand, this bitch makes 75 sun when fully powered up, so before Primal Sunflower existing, there is no discussion that this was the best sun producer. Its major downside is only for its homeworld, which, yeah, Dark Ages. As much as I'm talking shit because the gimmick never returns, it is generally baffling design, as the lack of mushrooms, the timer oven puff shrooms, and PvZ2's fast-paced design makes this classic gimmick a burden that will either irritate you by the end of the world, or you are a masochist. But Sunshroom itself is an 8-tier sun producer, the first real sign of power creeping in this fame, because you know, 75 suns. Puff Shroom. Remember who you are! What happened to this guy? Seriously, PopCap, 60 seconds? 60 seconds? That's less than the average guy takes on bed. These guys are not that strong, PopCap, especially with the fact they have a pitiful range that probably just means they will be eaten by anything that isn't a regular zombie. Besides that clear downside, it's not completely useless. In the Dark Ages it's great as a staller at the start of the game level, unless it has a grave in front. On the other hand, the plant food ability is absolute top tier in a world where this plant isn't timed. she would be an actual monster with more than 2 or 3 rows planted. But the downside is so big I need to stick it in C tier. This guy was just fucked by too much pop capping in between the games. Fume Shroom. A really cool plant, I like it, but before we get into it I need to rant about Jester zombies. Why? Well, Fume Shroom is the introduced counter to them, same way for example they countered the door zombies from the original game. But this is the first sign of the fundamental difference between PvZ1 designs and PvZ2's design. In the original game you were not penalized for choosing the wrong answer to a problem. Yeah, you would lose quicker, but you can brute force a door zombie, you can just kill a vaulting zombie, hell you even have various responses to minor zombies. And unlike all of those, the Jester zombie shoots back your projectiles. This makes every catapult NP shooter useless against them. As well as Puff Shroom, which leaves only Fume Shroom as its counter, that doesn't actively penalize you and aren't instants. If you were playing back then, the other options would be Snapdragon, Bonk Shoy and Laser Beam. And Fume Shroom, which is a plant I like, I really do, and clearly serves its purpose because, and sprawling a bit, besides Laser Beam, this is the only plant that has enough range to take it out at a decent distance until wizard zombies. But that is a problem with Dark Age's frustrating design, that will splash into other worlds, but the plant itself is a high bit tier, even if I think 50 suns added to its cost is not justified considering it didn't get a significant buff between PvZ1 and 2. Sunbeam. No! Fuck no! I can't put into words the stupidity of this plant. Okay, first, it costs 50 sun. Why? It's unlocking the world with the least sun, even if you use against a knight in the bucket head. By the point you are doing that, you can just have 2 rows of sun shrooms. Second, why is the plant ability so awful? The plant is literally just the worst sun producer in the world, with the least sun, and PopCap thought it was too busted or something. I just can't with this plant, it's stupid. The design of Dark Ages is stupid, and this plant is the proof of it. It literally took the place of a Scaredy Shroom, Doom Shroom, or God forbid Starfruit, but instead we get this fucker. F tier. Magnet Shroom. Keeping with the theme of PvZ1 plants that got fucked up over and during conversion, Magnet Shroom. A really good plant that just can't keep up with this game's often ludicrous rhythm. Unlike some other gimmicky counterparts, Magnet Shroom is actually quite useful here and eventually Neon Mixtape too, but that usefulness does not save it though. It's too slow for any big horde. The cost, while acceptable in the PvZ2 meta, is not that justifiable considering in most worlds it only affects bucket heads. And, kind of more insultingly, they did have a great possibility of buffing it and making what it could be another Magnifying Grass or Citron, by throwing the buckets against zombies like he does in its plant food ability. Kind of a mirror to the Jester, same way Infinite has a shield like the shield zombie, but instead we get a good PvZ1 plant that just ported over while still keeping the same abilities, and due to the game shift into arena and live service, relegated to pick up dust in adventure. A solid beat here in that in many ways just suffers from the fact PvZ2 is sometimes a downright unfair game for plants with cooldowns and it up your useful space, since that normally would be a place where you could just put a nut or a cherry bomb for example.
So, while I'd say Dark Ages is one of the most intriguingly designed worlds, the plant collection it presents is still solid, with great plants that would get more usage if they were rebalanced, or Dark Ages wasn't the only night world. Or, better yet, revisit sleeping mechanics and coffee bean. But as it stands, I'd consider Dark Ages the signs of PvZ2's downfall. Next up is Big Wave Beach. Oh my god! The devil is coming! Ladies and gentlemen, if you think I'm ranty about
this roster, you have seen nothing. Brace yourselves because next video is going to be really controversial. Sayonara.
And thanks for paying attention. Stay tuned for the next part, Big Wave Beach. And stay tuned for my other content from my main case file series to extras and even my weird ramblings sometimes. I'm Velun, you are audience, and I thank you for watching this long. Don't forget to like, sub, check my link tree, and now, sorry but Mr. Loon is gone.